And I think we're going to be live. It looks like we're live. And we are definitely recording. Hi there. Okay, let's do this. And I'm really excited today because I have a wonderful guest, and I'm not going to spill the beans just yet, but good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. And if you're with us live, I'm so happy that you're here. And if you're catching the replay later on today, please definitely like and comment. You can even put an emoji on that you loved it. And any comments are welcome. And we'll get back to you later in the day with any responses to your questions or any comments that you share with us. But we really appreciate it because it helps to promote the topic throughout the internet. So don't forget to share it also, which is so important because someone can benefit truly from the information we're about to share with you today, especially the topic for today. Worldwide, everyone can learn from the information we're going to share. It's a very heartwarming topic. It's important, and I think we're all affected in some respects with the circumstances that we're going to share today. And hi, I'm Evelyn Cosme, a leadership strategist for your life and work, the CEO of Evelyn Cosme International, the creator of the Power of Be, a method for the development and empowerment of high achieving women. And I'm so passionate about guiding and teaching women how to improve the quality of their lives through self-mastery, leadership strategies with a focus to achieve a life and work that's value-driven and for purpose. Now, for announcements for today, the website is really done, but I'm still having glitches with the platform. So hopefully we'll be able to resolve them in the next few days, and I'll be publishing the website soon. The ebook is also completed, and you'll be having access to that at some point. I'll be sharing more information. And the course that I'll be putting online on a platform, Emotional Reset for High Achieving Women, will also be up probably by the end of May, if not in June. Now, we're open for services, of course, and if some of the information that I share online isn't enough and you feel you need coaching, training, or perhaps a speaking engagement that I could be part of, I'll be happy to chat with you. And you know how to find me. Just check the links below. Now, welcome to Extraordinary Women of Guts and Grace, a podcast about compassionate, courageous leadership. My intention is to honor, celebrate, and highlight the work of women in their industries. I also want to inspire other women to take on leadership and the next generation of leaders as well. But it really starts with leading yourself and then choosing to lead others. Now, my topic for today is something we've not spoken about in all the episodes, and this is episode 16. Now, the topic is amid adversity, finding joy, fulfillment, and thriving as a special needs family. My guest today, a very unique, extraordinary woman, definitely of guts and grace, Dr. Marcia Nathai Balkissoon, author, educator, and special needs advocate. Hello, Marsha. Thank you so much for being here. Why don't you greet the audience before I read your bio?
Hello, Esme, Evelyn. Sorry, I mixed your name and made one. Hi, Evelyn. I want to say thank you, first of all, for inviting me to be here with you. I feel so honored because of the good work that you have been doing. And I want to applaud you for sharing so many stories and so much inspiration with viewers. I hope to step up to the level that the other people that Evelyn has interviewed have met.
Oh,
Everybody, hello, I'm so glad to be here.
I'm sure you will and exceed in so many ways. The topic is extraordinary, definitely today. And it's something that touches my heart that I'm very familiar with because of my own work. But Dr. Marcia Nathai Balkissoon is a storyteller and educator who believes that we each have a powerful purpose that should guide our lives. As one of her children is brain injured and bedridden, Marsha and her family have traversed significant challenges. She's passionate about helping special needs families to feel more connected, gain visibility, access, and support, and tap into their resilience, which is so important, especially in the times that we're experiencing at this moment. Her book, Lighting the Path, focuses on these issues and on sharing special needs experiences to boost inclusion and reduce isolation of special needs families. And we'll be talking a lot more about that. Now, Marsha helps others to connect deeply with their purpose so they can experience more joy and fulfillment. Through intuitive and logical interventions, her work seeks to shift mindsets, build habits, foster creativity and curiosity, and enable people to live their best lives each day, trusting they are enough. And being enough is such a huge issue that a lot of people have to deal with on a daily basis. Am I enough? Am I enough? And I'm so glad that Marsha is working with people to help them recognize that they are enough. As a tenured lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Marsha is most drawn to the fields of health, safety and wellness, business and personal strategy, and teaching and learning as well. She is a certified parent skills master trainer and enjoys working with her husband to adapt interventions for their daughter and helping other parents to do the same for their children. Now, I definitely have so many questions and I hope we can get all through them in just 1 hour. But if we don't, I'll definitely bring you on another time and we'll share more information, especially about the book that you've written, the Lighting the Path. Now, the question I always ask every single guest, and it's going to be the same for you, Marsha. What did you want to be when you grew up? What was it that little Marsha played at? And did it translate? Did it transfer to who you've become and the successful woman that you are, not just in your professional life, but at home as well?
There were 3 things that I imagined myself to be when I was a child. The first was a teacher. I was surrounded by teachers. My parents were teachers. It took me a long time to get up the guts to follow that dream, but I'm a lecturer now and teaching is one of the joys of my life. The other 2 were I love to make up stories. I love to write. And I'm launching my book now, so I've become an author. And the third was I loved art. I would draw and I would just immerse myself. I would start at about 6 in the evening. And before I knew it, the sun was coming up and it was 6 in the morning.
Oh.
So I used to get in flow doing art. But as life got busy, I stopped. I lost that commitment and I stopped putting time into it. In the past 2 years, I've again immersed myself in my art, although I do it on a mini scale now, because with a special needs child, there isn't so much time. So I make these little bookmarks, or I do little paintings that will take me half an hour, an hour. I dream of going deeper there. But those were my three dreams for what I wanted to do with my life.
So, and definitely they have translated into who you've become, lecturing at a university and the work that you're doing, speaking publicly as well about the circumstances that you've experienced and how to help others to see the light at the end of that very long and difficult tunnel. Now, share with us what inspired you to complete a doctorate, because you're a doctor and I know what your degree is in, but share with the audience what you actually coursed in and what it is that you're teaching at the university.
So by qualification, I'm an industrial engineer and I have a PhD in industrial engineering. Industrial engineering to me is all about systems development. Mm-hmm. And as you know from leadership is about systems development as well.
Absolutely.
It's all about understanding where we want to go and figuring out a structured approach to getting there. Seeing the patterns, establishing those patterns or habits, putting the processes in place. So that's what industrial engineering is about. And for my focus for my PhD, it actually was on health and safety. Oh. So because I love health, safety, wellness so much, that's what I was drawn to do for my thesis, for my PhD. And that's what I'm focusing so much of my career now on. Wellness for parents of special needs children being the big focus. And then stepping into your joy and fulfillment more by aligning your life, by finding balance in your life.
Which is a really hard thing to do. And I appreciate how you aligned the engineering and the systems and strategies and processes with leadership, because it's so true. And one thing I want to say, a lot of people think that leadership has to do only with people who are in large corporations, companies, or business owners, but leadership really and truly starts with yourself. I think one of the most extraordinary leaders that we see around the world are women who are parenting, who are at home, because it takes a lot of thought into organizing a household and just the everyday activities that go into from doing laundry, prepping meals, purchasing groceries, and if you have children, dealing with the children. Even if you don't, women have so many responsibilities in the family unit, whether it's with their elderly parents, with pets, or other things in the community that they're involved in. So thank you so much for that. And leadership is key, ladies and gentlemen. And I really want to drive this through. And precisely my book, my ebook that will be coming out soon is about precisely choosing to lead, but starting with your own life. So I hope you'll check it out. Now, Marsha, my experience with guiding people through trauma, crisis, and life transitions, as well as my own traumatic experiences in childhood and my adult life at some point, have taught me many lessons, and that speaking about adversity is a difficult thing. It's not easy to do because it can trigger a person's memories, the emotions, even cellular memories get triggered when it comes to trauma and difficult aspects, circumstances, events that can occur. Now, this is a twofold question. What is your firsthand experience with adversity? And secondly, is it hard to speak about your special needs family and share your story, and why have you chosen to do so?
Okay. My experience with adversity has been extensive. It's been a lifelong exploration. So I think for purposes of our chat, I will maybe just say that the biggest part of my life adversity has revolved around my daughter Emma's brain injury when she was 8 months old. Became so severely brain injured through a medical error that we were told that she would be vegetative for life, that she would have lost all of her senses and her ability to suck and swallow, and she would remain bedridden and unable to do anything for the rest of her life. So at that point, adversity for me was seeing all my hopes for my daughter crashing, seeing all my intentions for my family disappearing, having my finances suddenly be depleted to keep her alive, and not knowing if I would be able to provide enough to keep her and us going in the short term and definitely into the longer term. And then the dreams coming from a third world country and a village background, I had dreams of, I had a career where I was making good money, and I had dreams of taking my children around the world and giving them the experiences I had never had. So I was putting all of these dreams into a box and floating it down the river, because all I could see for myself was a life of duty and care, stretching into the infinite. So that was one of my big experiences with adversity. The second part of your question was, how easy is it to speak? Why do I choose to speak of adversity with my special needs family, and how easy is that to do? It's easier now, Evelyn, because I made the choice to be transparent about this. When it had just begun, I was in the States for surgery with Em, and we ended up staying in the States for about 2 months because she was comatose. We were learning to be, you know, she had flatline, she was comatose. We were going into rehab to try to train ourselves up because we didn't know when we came back to Trinidad if there would be support. So we had to build that support into ourselves. So because we did not know what was to come, we were there for 2 months before she was cleared to travel, to go back on a plane and come home. And that meant that I wasn't sure that my job was secure. And there were people, the gentleman in the office next to mine, my head, I had told him everything before I came. I had told him before I accepted the job what was going on in my life. And I think he spoke to the guy next to me, and he arranged to mark my scripts. He arranged to keep things running. Luckily, I had completed my teaching before the emergency with them had come up. And she timed her illness very well. So it was during the break between semesters. So I came back in just as my semester started, and I resumed work as if nothing had happened. And the advice that I got from a senior person at work was, Marsha, you are to pretend as though your life is normal.
Wow.
And that did not resonate with me at all.
Of course not.
Because, so I was being told, you need to come across as though you are just like everybody else, and you are not on a stormy sea, because you want to make everybody think that you have it all together. If you don't bring across that view, it could redound to your, not to your benefit, because renewing your contract and so on depends on you looking stable.
And we can talk a lot right now about vulnerability and how vulnerability is seen in the workplace. And this is something that I speak a lot with women in leadership, and how we have to walk in your case, in a classroom to teach and appear that everything's perfect, everything's smooth, because no one wants to experience that vulnerability. We are so accustomed to hiding our feelings, not expressing them. And when a woman does it, it's seen very negatively. If a man does it, he's applauded. This is very interesting. If a man shows vulnerability at a given time, he's commended for showing that vulnerability, for expressing his emotions. Now, how much is too much in terms of expressing vulnerability? And shouldn't we expect to a certain extent that our community and people that see us every day become part of that healing process in whatever way it is, whether it's with good wishes, whether it's asking if you need anything, or just letting you vent, perhaps, and people steer clear of this. Now, how has your own culture, your religious beliefs, if any, played a part in the decisions on how you experience this circumstance? And of course, when we say culture, not just your cultural background, but your organizational culture as well.
Right. So picking up where I was at, what I realized is that I did not feel comfortable compartmentalizing my life. I couldn't live in the pretense of having everything sorted and then come home to chaos. There was this imbalance if I was doing that, because I needed to be honest about who I was, and I couldn't have integrity within myself unless I presented myself exactly as I was and my family as it was. That was important to me, and this is where culture fits in. It was important to me because if I were curating the picture that I showed to everybody at work, it felt to me as though I were ashamed of my family.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best I could explain it. I didn't think about why, but that was a big call. I didn't feel, my child was already hurt. My family was already breaking. I couldn't disown them by hiding them.
Of course.
And so I used speaking about what was going on in my life and showing the imperfection of me and of my family and my situation, not as a way to play on anybody's pity, to play a pity card.
Of course.
Although I'm sure that maybe some people perceived it as that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a way for me to say, I needed to let that out. It's a lot of pain and a lot of self-reframing that happens. And I found that the more I spoke about it, the more I processed it. That did not fit very well in my culture. Trinidad and Tobago, we have a nickname which is Little USA. And I think so our traditional culture used to be different. But the culture that's bleeding in is the Western culture. And it is one where we should be more independent. We should look stronger. We should look like we have it all together. And so me actually choosing to go the other way, to tell of the mistakes that I had made, to tell of the brokenness that I was experiencing, seeing, to tell of the way that I had done what I had been told in my culture was the way to live. Study hard, go to church, be a good girl, your life works out. You're going to have a wonderful life if you tick these boxes. Well, right. I ticked all the boxes and my life was crumbling. And what I was doing was reframing what I saw as success, because I thought I was a failure now that I didn't have, the perfect family, the perfect future, the perfect finances, etc., etc. The perfect story as well.
Mhm.
And that started to open me up to be more honest. And in that honesty, I began to learn how to find joy, even while I walk the challenging road. And what I think the biggest thing that changed for me in my understanding of my culture, I have no doubt everybody else understands culture, the same culture differently. But my understanding is I judged myself more harshly than everybody else judges me, I think. And I started to realize that I needed to drop that. I needed to release a lot of those mindsets that were not serving me. And I needed to just say, hey, Marsh, all is well. You're just doing the best you can. You are finding pockets of joy in every day. You love your family more than you've ever loved them, and they love you too. What else equates to success?
I really appreciate that you mentioned honesty, because truth does equal joy. When you have embodied that truth and you express it and live it, it absolutely does offer joy. And even people who don't live in the circumstances that you do, Marsha, joy is not something that's always there. We have moments of it. It ebbs and flows, and and what we can do is to learn to sustain and renew those moments by doing things that definitely support the desire for that feeling of joy, and making the right choices, standing in your truth, whatever it may be, and not letting other people, culture, work, etc., impose their belief systems on how your life should be and what success should look like. A lot of people think that success is just having a lot of money, flying in jets, living this lifestyle. But I do agree with you. If you've been able to find joy in just having the love of your family. And when you and I spoke about your circumstances and everything, it was just so heartwarming, all of the things that occur throughout the day. And my next question has to do with this. Share what a day is for Marsha. What is your day like, and your family, and how do you establish the priorities? Because you're working, you're a wife, you're a mother, and we have more things to talk about. But
Okay. So I'll use this morning as my typical day. It's not so typical because today the nurse who usually comes out to assist did not.
Oh,
And
wow.
that meant that, and you sort of live this life where you don't know what difficulty is about to come to you for the day. So I woke up this morning, and my typical morning is I open my eyes and I hear laughter ringing through the house.
Wow.
And that's a joy in itself. I hear birds outside my window and I hear laughter ringing through the house. And laughter is Emma, because she's laughing with her dad, who is giving her something to eat. She's laughing with the birds, and she's laughing because somebody is singing to her usually. And that has been, like some people have a gratitude practice. That triggers my gratitude practice, because it's like, okay, all these things happen to this little girl, but I don't hear her crying. She's celebrating life. I'm alive. I have opportunity. I've come this far. I'm surrounded by love, and I'm continuing to do my best. And that reminds me that that's exactly what I should be aiming for. So I got out of bed and I went into the room, because the first thing I do is I visit with Emma and my husband. He stays with her in the night because he can lift her and I can't anymore. She turned 9 in March, so she's too big now for me to handle on my own for long times. And he said, oh, Auntie, we call the nurse Auntie. Auntie didn't come out today. And all of a sudden I said, oh my, okay, so things have changed because we had therapy with them today. And usually somebody holds the video camera and lets, directs it. And then so she will hold the camera and I will do the activities as the person on the camera gives instruction. Because in COVID time, we've decided we don't want to put Emmy at any extra risk. So we're not going to go out as much as we can. We're not going to go to therapy. So we'll have online therapy and do everything. So we did what we had to do. My husband is a teacher, so he went off to do his online teaching. I came in and I did therapy with them and whatever else I had to do. Then I ran outside. I had breakfast next to Em, sitting next to Em, talking to her so she didn't feel she was alone. Ran back out, reminded Sean that I had this interview with you so that he was able to time his class and not go over as he tends to go. Round that up, come in, say, okay, Marsh, rush over. So I jumped in the bath and I put on the makeup that I don't usually put on for the interview. And I came on here and tried to, and then we in the middle of the interview and the power goes off. So you may see a glitch somewhere where the power went off and then we switched over to data. So it's like that. We just it's like, tag team wrestling. So Sean rushes in, he does his part, then he calls on Brian, my son who is 14, and he says, Bri, hold on for 15 minutes with them for me. I'm going to teach. When mommy is finished with hers, she'll come. And
oh wow.
But God gives you all that you need to figure it out.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
And to manage it. And it may not be the easy life that you might have dreamed of, but it sure is fulfilling, because sometimes people say, how are things going? And I reflect and I say, I'm busy. And that's more than many people can say. I still have a job. I have a family, and we all work in service to each other. I'm pushing forward with a business. I'm serving people, and I love the service that I give, whether it's in my classes or through coaching, through training, through speaking, through the authoring. What else can I ask for? So much opportunity.
That's wonderful. And I love that you perceive it that way. Now, I'd like you to share at this point. You mentioned that Emma's laughing, and we talked yesterday too, and she speaks as well. Share what the doctor said when you received the news, what to expect, and what you have done that Emma is speaking. It's taken a long time, but the dedication that you, your husband, and Brian, your son, have had with Emma is remarkable.
Em had 4 problems in her heart. We did open heart surgery when she got to a critical point. Recovering in the ICU, unfortunately, something went wrong. Somebody pulled out the wrong tube. She bled out, and that led her to flatline. She was flatlined for 20 minutes. And unfortunately, brain damage usually happens around 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. So they said that she was extensively brain damaged by when I think 2 weeks had passed and she was not coming out from this comatose kind of state. So they did an MRI, and they found the MRI to show her brain to be white, and brains on MRIs should show gray, from what I understand. So they said, oh, this is hard. Your daughter's whole brain seems to have been wiped. She's going to stay vegetative for life. This is what you should expect. You should expect her to have no senses and to have lost her ability to suck and swallow. And that is what we began with. We began with a child who, she just lay in one position. When she cried, because we were surrounded by people whose children in other ICU rooms had done open heart surgery, etc. And we were hearing these children screaming and crying, and their parents, comforting them. And what we saw with Em was tears coming down, her mouth open as though she was screaming, and no sound coming out. And that is one of the most heartbreaking
Mm.
visuals that I have that will remain with me, because for the first time I saw a child crying as a blessing, that meant your child could communicate with you.
Of course.
And Em couldn't. She couldn't say, "Mom, I'm confused. Mom, I'm scared." She was 8 months old, so yes, she couldn't say words, but sounds communicate so much. And she was mute. And we were told that this would be her situation for life, so we should allow her, remove her feeding source and allow her to go, because life would be too difficult for her and for us. I thank God that we didn't. We never considered that. And we decided that we had prayed for her to come back, and she had. So we weren't going to say, well, I was actually praying for perfection, and this doesn't match my picture of perfection. What we decided to do was just fight on. If there was 0.0001% chance of recovery, we made the decision that we were going to believe that Emma was that 0.0001%.
Mm.
She could be it. And there's always miracles, right? So, I mean, I still go to sleep sometimes and I cry. On a tough day, I will cry for what we've lost and for what I used to dream for, etc., etc. For what Emmy's lost and the pain I see her going through sometimes. And after I'm done crying, I'll cry to God and I'll say, God, I know you are capable of all things. So let me wake up in the morning, please, and let Emmy be walking and talking and dancing and singing. And I'm so greedy when I say these prayers. I pray for Emma to be going to school and have friends and all these things. Because if you're asking, ask everything. So
absolutely.
So that's where we started. And what we have gotten to is we have seen that most doctors, they operate on statistics, and I can't blame them. So they say statistically, here's what we know. So I'm telling you, your child is not going to recover. I'm telling you that you're being irresponsible to expect any recovery from her. And that's the kind of thing. We've had doctors who have actually shouted at us for telling them that we see. So there was one doctor, we took her to an eye specialist and we said, could we get her eyes checked? And the doctor said, your daughter is blind. Oh. And I said, doc, I don't think so. I think she perceives light and I think she's seeing red. And the doctor actually shouted at me as though I were 5 years old and told me that I'd better listen and I'm making it all up, etc., etc.
Oh,
and let's stop there. So I left very, very broken. I left, but I left also saying, you know what? Not all doctors are the same. I'm going to get a second opinion.
Of course.
I found another highly respected specialist. I went to that specialist and I said, let me tell you up front that this is the background I'm coming with. This is what I've been told. I am convinced that there is some sight. I have, in my research and reading, I've found a diagnosis called cortical visual impairment that says, this is how I equate it. When your brain is hurt, your brain can't tell your leg to move.
Right.
We do not tell you your leg is broken. We tell you your brain is injured and it can't communicate. Emma's eyes are working fine, but her brain can't interpret the message from her eyes. Mm-hmm. That's what cortical visual impairment is. And if I can train Emma to move her leg, then I can train Emma to begin to put the pieces together in the jigsaw that comes in through her eyes and compile the image.
Wow.
Right? But it depended on me looking for myself for answers, because everybody else likes to just go into automaticity. My experience as a doctor says this, or my therapy background says this, and I don't blame them because most people might fit there. But if I tell you I'm seeing something that does not fit your diagnosis, I expect to be respected as a parent who sees the child.
Of course.
I expect that my role is to advocate for my child, and that my child will be respected, and that the person that I go to will hope for my child. And if I don't receive that, then I also have gotten to the point where I've grown enough resilience, I guess, to say, sure, I'm going to meet some people who don't see Emma as worthy. There are some people who don't see Emma as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, no problem. I'll close the door on you, and I will find somebody who fits us better. That doctor did a check, that eye doctor did a check of the back of Emma's eyes and said, ooh, actually her optic nerve is pink. When somebody doesn't see, their optic nerve becomes gray.
Oh, wow.
Emma's optic nerve is pink. It's not as bright pink as somebody who sees fully, but it's pink. And so, you know, Mom, I think you might be onto something. In this country, we don't diagnose cortical visual impairment. We don't have a practice around that. I will not be able to help you there, but what you say makes sense, and you seem to already have studied the steps to help your child. So I'd say do it at home. So what we have today is strung around her room at her ceiling. We have Christmas lights, the blue and white ones that twinkle on and off on different patterns. And when we turn that on, she looks up. Wow. Because she knows. And then at night, we're going to say, okay, I'm taking your lights off. And she sees when the lights go off. And then I take bright red and yellow, which is the beginning of the Roy G. Biv rainbow colors. Mm-hmm. She sees one wavelength. So she sees red and yellow, and I take a big yellow something and I pass it across. Give us a second or two and her eyes move. So we do tracking with those. If all I need, to me, those are huge miracles. And they also are indications of change, which means that more change can come. That's one example of how we've gotten Emma back to now moving her hands, to taking the tube out and actually feeding her with a spoon.
Oh, wow.
To having playlists for her because she hears so well and loves music now.
Good.
And to starting to see, to recognize voices, to know words to songs. So if I don't sing the tune, but I say the word, she starts to kick because she knows that's the song. And that's language reception.
Of course. And I'm just so amazed that with the work that you and your husband and Brian have done with her. And it's really an inspiration, the dedication that you have and the purpose and passion to work with her. Now, the most important thing here that just jumps out is your guts to advocate for her, not to settle for what doctors have told you. And a lot of parents will just take it that way and leave it that way. Others will fight, others will advocate for their children, and sometimes they have different service providers that encourage parents to become their child's advocates, because a lot of families are expecting the government to take different responsibility in this, and there should be, most definitely. But it's like you said, which is so sad but so true, that some people may not see that Emma or children like Emma are worthy of going the extra mile, of doing extra testing, of creating different types of machinery and things that alleviate the process, not just for the child, but for the parents as well. And you being an engineer, you can see the process and the strategies and the systems that are needed for her to be successful, because she is successful She's happy, she smiled. And this brings us to the spiritual aspect of everything that's going on. Your family coming together and finding joy and fulfillment in helping Emma day to day is a beautiful testimony to love and compassion, which is great. And it speaks to the fact that we are spiritual beings in bodies. Doesn't matter how that body comes, what happens to that body, we are still spiritual beings. And you, your husband, and Brian have been able to communicate directly with that spirit. And it's alive and it's kicking and it has preferences and it expresses itself. You know, she does express herself in the way she is able to with the limitations that she has. But you have made life so much beautiful. And I know that parents sometimes feel, oh, my child is missing out on things. Speak to that, because the reality is that she's very happy with all the attention she's getting, the love and tenderness that your family shows.
I can definitely say that M is happy. And this is not necessarily a reflection on that we are doing things perfectly. That's not what I'm trying to say when I say M is happy at all, because I always see the gaps in how we do things.
Of course.
Still, that self-judgment sits there, right? But yes, comparison is a comparison and learned. I was the parent with Brian. I was the parent who knew every developmental stage. Coming from teaching, coming from that kind of industrial background, I wanted to know what the steps were, and I wanted to make sure I led my child through those steps and to those steps in the right time. I wasn't going to drop him. And I celebrated that he was always ahead of every step. I was like, yes, you know, it was a competition. Nobody else knew about this competition, only me. But I was congratulating myself. And then Emmy came along. And the truth is, I felt like such a failure. Because my child, she couldn't even do the first developmental thing. She couldn't hold her head up. She can't still. But now I realize that's a figment of your imagination. That's your mindset, that you felt that this was the only way a worthwhile life could be lived. And I don't, if you ask me about those developmental stages now, as well as I once knew them, I've sort of purged those things. I now speak more about what is your child's love language. How can you show them love in a way that reaches their heart? You don't want it to leave in your language. You want it to leave in a language that they can receive. What are your child's learning preferences or styles? So that's what I do with my students at school, beginning of every semester, teaching them, how do you learn best? How do you receive material best? How do you internalize it best? And then I realized, hey, if I can teach this to my students, this is what I need to understand M. What's the way into M's brain? And music was one of the ways. So she was all about auditory learning. No surprise there, because she couldn't see very well.
Of course. But
even using light and tracking, you know, so I started, and for her it was affection. So I would say, you know, M, every time you take a swallow, because she doesn't swallow very well, so I'm giving her water, I need that water to be drunk. Every time you take a swallow, baby, I'll give you a kiss. A kiss after every swallow takes a long time. It's really hard work to give kisses after every swallow. But she laughs and kicks because she wants that. That's the way that we say, here's your motivation, baby. And that's how she has developed the ability to swallow better and better, because we found a way to reward it. We found that these rewards make her see the task as something she wants to do now. And therefore, it's not going to be work, it's going to be fun that she's engaging in.
And that is lovely that you have expressed that, and coming into the understanding and the knowing that the stages aren't important. It's the joy, the happiness, the sense of wellness, and the comforts that she has under the circumstances, which you make sure that she feels that way. Now, my experience, yes.
I just want to say one thing. There was something I said before where I was talking about the doctors and so on. I do want to make clear that this is by no means a judgment of all doctors and therapists.
Of course.
Because the same way that I found doctors who didn't see Emma as a worthwhile person and didn't have hope for him, I found some shining examples of human beings who were doctors. And those people I held on to and I treasure up to today. I don't think I'll ever lose contact with those people, you know.
And that's very special. And I think that God or the universe, whatever, anyone who's listening to this episode and our conversation, it depends on the faith that you have, and that you open up to people who are willing to help.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we isolate ourselves, particularly families who are special need families. The isolation comes into play. And another big piece is the other children in the family, and how they may not get as much attention. They may not even be part of the process. And I'd like you to speak about that isolation. Has it occurred within the family and outside of the family? And Brian, speak about Brian, please.
Okay.
And we're coming to an end. I know that you do have something that you have to attend to right after this, so that we be mindful of that.
So I know I'm sort of delayed in answering. It seems that every time we answer, I'm telling you something about the last question. You did ask about, the spiritual side of things, and this connects with Brian. I have a friend who early on in Emmy's journey said to me, "Oh, she's a little master." And I did not understand what she meant. And that led me to really reframing my understanding of what spirituality meant to me. It was as I saw Emmy transcend this chaos that we are living, transcend all that I saw as loss, and never once complain for me, while I certainly was complaining for me. I was so sad and I was so broken by what she had lost, and strangely enough, and by what I had lost. But I looked at her one day and I realized Emmy doesn't think she's lost anything.
Not at all.
And that maybe is the crux of the big spiritual understanding that I have. It feels to me as though this journey is one that Em has come on to be a teacher to me, and I think to others, because she is living the lesson in silence, without bashing anybody over the head with her thoughts. She's living the example and saying, whoever wants to learn from me, learn. But I am thankful for every moment. I'm making the best of every moment. And I am enjoying as much of it as I can. There is pain in my life. I will cry, etc. As soon as that's done, I'm switching back into my chosen path.
Mm-hmm.
And that has bolstered me a lot. It has bolstered all of us. And Em's journey has really, I think, brought Bri, developed Bri into a very, very empathetic, caring young man. I think, yes, he had the seeds of those things, but he's living in a strange situation. So he'll hear his sister crying and she's not settling for dad or mom. And he'll run into the room and put his hand exactly on some spot in her. It's like I think it's her solar plexus chakra kind of area. And immediately she comes and he'll talk to her, he'll kiss her, he'll sing for her. And they will have a little laughing and talking. And then he says, okay, good, see you. And he goes back to play with his friends, you know. Or he'll come in and he'll do his own little therapies with her. Every night he shows up and he has 4 prayers he does with her. So he sings and he says his prayers and he says the psalm that he has selected, and he plays music with her and he taps out a beat on her tummy, and they have their own little time. And then we do, all 4 of us around the bed, we'll do our good night routine, kiss her and leave her with dad to go to sleep. So Bri is so important because Bri is her protector. Every time we go to a new therapist, he's like, I'm going to. And if he has to hide, he's shy. So he may sit there, but after the therapist leaves, he says, I don't really like this one, or I love this one. You know, because he's like, I didn't get a good vibe. I didn't like how this person talked, or I love the way this person did this. But he's looking out for her, given that she can't tell us herself.
Mm-hmm. Good for him. And it's beautiful that the 4 of you have come together, because it is a lot of time, effort. I'm sure there are times you don't rest a lot or well. And your husband is in the room with her to be able to move her and tend to her in the evening, which means that your relationship also has been impacted tremendously, and yet you find the time to be loving to each other and caring, although you don't really have a lot of time together. Speak a little bit about your husband and his role, and then speak about your book and how people can access your book at some point.
Okay, sure. So Sean and I have been married for, I think it's 22 years, 1999, we got married. And what I saw when Em got hurt, I started to meet so many people and I started to ask them their experiences. And I saw many, many parents who were single parents caring for special needs children. Mm-hmm. Many of them were women, not all. But what they would tell me is that when the child got sick, the other partner walked out. The other partner said, you know what, this is too much for me to handle. Sometimes it was about self-identity. I do not identify as a parent of a sick child.
Right.
Sometimes it was the strain. It's a big load to take on. And so sometimes people would say, you know, I feel for you, but I have to take care of me first and I can't manage. And so they'd walk out. And what that leaves is twice the load for the single parent. And I think it's much more than twice the load, because you never get somebody to hand off to. I feel so grateful that Sean has stuck by my side, but that makes it sound as though I'm the one who's doing the most of it and he's just by my side. And it's quite the opposite. And that is an amazing thing that I could say that, because most times it's the mom who takes on the crux of it. And the dad is the one who pops in and sings with the child or plays with the child for 10 minutes and leaves.
Just the fun time.
I think with special needs children, maybe it's different. I've heard some parents tell me, well, no, not so different for us. The dad, go out and work and the mom stays home all the time. In Sean and my case, the finances were challenging, so we both had to stay working. But we have faced a lot of judgment, people telling us, you should stay home. You're failing your child because you've chosen differently. That plagued me for many, many years, that feeling that I had people tell me, so where do you get off on taking a masculine role in your family?
Oh, wow.
You know, how is it that your husband is taking so much of a feminine role? And I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry because they'll never understand. Sean and Em have a relationship like that far surpasses anything I've ever seen in another father-daughter relationship. And I'm sure that other people will see their relationship similarly. But Em doesn't say mama, but she says dada.
Oh, wow.
Dada was the first word she could say, because that's the love of her life. Em said mama once in her whole life. She's 9. One night I was with her and she woke up, she was crying. I held her on my shoulder and I said, okay, baby, let's go to sleep. And I rocked her. I think I rocked her from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. Walked with her, rocked her, and her little eyes, you could see them shining in the dark, and she would not go to sleep. I wasn't speaking because I wanted her to sleep. And at 6 o'clock, Sean walked in. He said, Marsh, obviously you're not getting through. And she threw back her head and she squealed like, yes, finally. Right? But before he walked in, she did this. She said, Mama. And I was like, oh, yes, she said my name, right? And she repeated, Mama. And I said, yes, baby. Dada. And that's when I said, Sean, and he came and he said, you're not getting through. So he took her, and 10 minutes later he was out and he said, good, she's sleeping. That child held out for him because she knows who she wants for different things. Mm-hmm. She wants dad for certain things. She wants mom to play, sing, do therapy. She wants dad to love.
Oh.
Who am I to say no? Because it's a blessing that she has preferences.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And considering what the doctors had told you, it's a miracle. But it's a miracle and a work of love and dedication and purpose and so much passion that you all put into this. It's a lovely story. Of course, there is sadness, like you say, there are moments that you cry. I mean, all parents, even with children who don't live through these type of circumstances, have moments of difficulty. But in your case, it can be very extreme at times, just worrying for her well-being, but she's progressing, she's moving along, and it's all because of the love that all of you give and the attention and the ideas to create things and systems and processes in the home to facilitate her life, to make her life as enjoyable as it seems to be for her. And I'm so happy for you all. Your beautiful family. You are definitely an amazing, extraordinary woman of guts and grace for sure. So compassionate and so courageous. Thank you for giving us that role model of what a woman is in all aspects, and the sacrifices that you each have made, taking time out from your sleep time, your personal time with your husband. It has required all of these things in order to make this work, but you definitely have overcome adversity, and day to day, you flow with whatever is occurring, and you come together, and so many families don't do that even on a good day, so I commend you tremendously for that. And just to end with a wonderful note, with you speaking about words of wisdom having to do with leadership in life and work for the audience.
Okay. I forgot to tell you about the book. I'll put the link for how you could get the book in the comments.
Absolutely. And just share really quickly what the book is about.
Okay. So the book is called Lighting the Path, Leaning into a Hopeful Future for Special Needs Parents. And it's not a memoir. it's in focused on holding the hand of special needs parents to help with the different issues that we face, all the negative emotions we face, and to tell you a little bit from my experience and Emma's experience that might be able to help you to face your own challenges and get some tips and tools to walk you through that, and then to take you past the negativity into connecting to your vision and purpose and starting to live a fuller, more joyful life by focusing on your health, on your relationship with your other children and your care for your other children, your love relationship, something that I'm working really hard on, and that has not thrived so much. Talking about your finances and helping to show up your resilience through many different approaches.
And I know you have so many other projects in the background, and I know you're the one that is short on time. I can stay on a little longer if you like, but because
I have about 15 minutes again,
okay,
if you want to.
Yeah, share a little bit what your vision is with your work right now, because I know there's lots of things happening. There's shifts are about to occur, which I'm really excited for you.
There are big shifts that are happening. Sometimes it's scary to stand on the edge and decide to push your boundaries. And a lot of my last 2 years have been about resetting boundaries of mind and boundaries of practice. But it began with me starting my business, registering a company. The company name is Progress Us because it's all about helping people to progress and progressing together. So it's not me focused, it's not you focused. Together we build each other. And realizing that what happened with M really was the impetus for me stepping into my purpose. As opposed to being a piece of what I do, it has become the center of what I do. Because in finding balance in the middle of that adversity, in finding hope and building resilience there, I've been learning so many skills, developing so many tools, and I've been surrounded by people as I go to clinics and training programs and everything. I've been surrounded by people that I'm seeing really need support. So a lot of my practice now is on sharing the support, the tools that help people to step out of this limited kind of living and see that they are meant for more and that they're capable of more, no matter how challenging times are. What lights me up is speaking. What lights me up is helping people to see that you don't have to have a perfect life. And my speaking does that by being vulnerable, by sharing with you the hard times. Yes, it touches people, but it touches people because you see a bit of your story in mine. My story might be a little bit different because the circumstances are different. But I think what we're talking about when I speak is the human condition. And so you see a piece of what you're going through, and then you're able to say, okay, I wonder how I could use this in order to level up my own life, in order to find more joy and fulfillment. And so I feel so moved because when you walk through a valley yourself, you want to help everybody else to walk through that valley. So it is to step into a place where I can help special needs people. So I'm speaking more and more with the aim of supporting special needs people. I'm running groups where I'm able to do training programs for special needs people as a parent to help other parents, as a person in a family to help other special needs families to thrive and to really feel alive and alight and hopeful, instead of just seeing the negativity, because there's always light with every piece of darkness. So how can we tune in more to the light and not feel so inundated by the dark? So more and more, that's what it is. The book is maybe one of the cornerstones of that, because that book is so full of who I am, what we've lived, and the tools and tips that we want to share so that we level people up. There is a website, which is marshanb.com. And on my website, as soon as you sign up, you get an email which gives you the first chapter free, the preface free. And then there's a follow-up that's going to come, which gives you one more chapter. And that chapter is going to be the how to care for your other children. Those two things I thought people needed the most. So I wanted to share them free of charge. And then the rest of the book, you can buy the book at Amazon. It's up for pre-order now.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Well, you know, I really appreciate that you took the time from your really busy day. And I know that we have to end this. Besides, we went over a little bit the hour, but it was so worth it. And the inspiration that your story ignites is amazing. And I'm so glad that you came on. And thank you again for being here. Final words of wisdom, something quick for parents, leadership, whatever flows at this moment.
This is true for everybody, not just for a special needs family. You give the most to your family. You give the most to the people who depend on you, whether it's at work or anywhere else, when you make sure to fill up your cup. Mm-hmm. You need to be filling yourself up. You need to be giving yourself a little time. And this doesn't necessarily mean a massage. It can mean taking time to draw, which is what I do. It can mean just sitting quietly with a book. It can mean taking a walk in nature and listening to the sounds of nature. Find what it is that gives you ease, that lets your stress just melt away. Because as that stress melts away, you also are filling up with positive energy. And that's the fuel to do the next thing better.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you again. And you are definitely, truly an extraordinary woman of guts and grace, definitely compassionate and courageous for the life that you lead with such grace and the purpose and passion that you put into everything that you do, Marsha. Thank you, Dr. Marcia Nathai Balkissoon, author, educator, and special needs advocate. Look out for her book, and if you need any guidance with advocacy, with living a life that you love, fulfillment as a special needs family or individual, or even if you're not, Dr. Nathai Balkissoon is available for coaching and groups and different types of services. So please reach out. I don't know how she does it, but I think there are more hours in a day for her. She's very extra special. So as I always sign off, much self-love, compassion, and benevolence. I deserve it. You deserve it. And Marsha deserves it too. Everyone around us deserves compassion and benevolence. Keep the peace, so important in these times. Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you, Marsha.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Evelyn.
Bye-bye.